So, hello, if anyone's going to join us live in a few minutes, I'm just doing a setup test to see if we can get Ira on board successfully. So I'm just going to invite him now. For any of you there in a second, I'll explain the purpose shortly. Let's see, what was that? Hey Portia, hi. So this is like a pre-test to see. Yes, okay, there's Ira. Okay, Ira, hopefully you can see me now. You should have been, let me try again. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, now Ira, we're just waiting for you. It should have got a request now for you to join. Hi, Iris.
Connecting.
Yay!
There it is. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Ira, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good. So,
You
Ira,
look.
maybe is there a way you can set up your phone a bit further away so we can see
Yes.
the whole face?
Yes. Let me see. Let me see if I can
Prop it up somewhere.
get myself situated.
Look at your temple room. Look at that. Wow.
Okay.
We can see the pictures on the wall.
Uh-huh.
Very nice.
What do we got here? There's Shiva and some other things. All right. Well, hello. We live, so you look nice and tan and Mexicoed out. And you're wearing a Mexican shirt,
I'm in.
blouse.
Yeah, a friend of mine lent me it. I love it.
Okay, nice.
So, Ira, still, is there a way you can put the phone like even a bit further away? Then we can see the whole face. Like, can you stand it anywhere?
Okay, let me see if I can figure out.
Hi, everyone that's joining. We thought we set up a few minutes early so that we could.
Get the best positioning.
Exactly.
Okay.
So thank you for waiting.
What I'm gonna do? Let me take this off. Fix my hair. Make myself presentable.
So everyone, I'll just introduce a little bit of like what I'm doing and why, Ira, while you do.
I'm listening.
So the purpose of this, I don't know, maybe some of you have seen previously that I've been chatting with a couple of different people, my Indian music teacher in Delhi, and then a wonderful womb wisdom woman called Vela last week. And we're really chatting about mantra, bhakti yoga, and how they got into this devotional path. Now, I thought it'd be really wonderful today to have a listen to Ira's perspective from maybe a Vedanta philosophy perspective, the Bhagavad Gita, and how that has like influenced your life in terms of Bhakti yoga, even though you're not a Bhakti, probably wouldn't describe yourself as a Bhakti yoga person. I don't know. We'll hear from you in a second. And but really about how, what Vedanta, the positioning within your Vedanta perspective is, the Bhagavad Gita from that perspective, and then actually how your life has been often intertwined with different Bhakti people, kirtan practitioners, and your lifelong journey with yoga in these aspects. Okay. So it's very unique, I think, and a really an honor to have you to share your wisdom somebody who's been in this world for a long time learning stuff.
Old timer, yes.
The Gita
Okay.
and Vedanta. So for those of you that don't know Ira, yeah, he will share that, I'm sure, from the little beginning of your journey and way back when. Yeah. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And yeah, we just want to offer it to people who don't know perhaps, and also learn about your wisdom from you.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess I'll talk a little bit about what Vedanta is in general, very general. It really is based on the ancient texts found in India that are called the Upanishads. And then there's two other texts that if you're study this philosophy, if you could call it a philosophy, is the Bhagavad Gita and another text that's called the Brahma Sutras. So this is the foundational text that this idea is based on. And the basic idea of these texts is that you and God are one. That your true nature, everybody's true nature, is one with God. And that the purpose of life, the true purpose of life, is to realize that truth. To get rid of the idea that I'm a limited person in a limited body that was born, getting old, and is going to die. Instead of that idea, to realize the truth that I am infinite bliss, infinite consciousness, infinite existence, and that's my true nature. To realize that fact in my own experience is the goal of Vedanta. And that everybody who's willing to inquire can discover this fact for themselves. It's not a religious belief. It's not a mystical state that only some special yogis can get, but that it's available for everybody at all times because it's their very nature. It's always shining, it's always present, and it's always available. At least this is the teaching of Vedanta. Now, nobody can really believe this because we all believe that I am this body. I am a man, I am a woman, I am a child, I am an old man. I'm going to get older and one day I'll die. That's what we all believe. So this Vedantic teaching seems to be against everyone's experience. How can we realize if it's true that I am not born, that I don't get old and die, that I'm not even in time, that I'm not even in space, that I'm beyond all concepts, beyond the universe? How can a person realize that? So in order to realize that fact, what's required is that everybody who's naturally identified with this body, with this mind, with these senses, and this mind is naturally extrovert, it's looking out. This extrovert nature of the mind makes that self very far away Wherever you look, you can't find it, no matter how much you pursue, because the self is happiness, the self is peace, the self is bliss, the self is immortal. But we're all seeking happiness, bliss, immortality, freedom outside, unable to find it. So the Vedantic teaching is the thing that you're looking for can't be found outside. The mind that's naturally extrovert has to, in order to realize this truth, the mind has to introvert. It has to turn back to that divinity that resides inside, that's not to be found outside. Even though this divinity is everywhere, it pervades the whole universe and is not in everything. If you want to find it, the mind has to turn inwards. This inward turning of the mind being focused on that, the mind turned towards that, the mind falling in love with that, the mind devoted to that, that mind is called Bhakti. That's Bhakti. Joining your mind to that is called Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means to join. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Bhaktya eva mam abhijanati. By bhakti alone, you will come to know me. If you turn your mind towards me, I will reveal myself to you. Mat bhakta, only the one who's turned the mind towards God, the God who resides in the hearts and minds of everyone. He's always shining inside of us at all times. And if we become devoted to that, that God reveals himself to be our very own nature. That God is my ever-present consciousness, which is infinite, timeless, spaceless, which pervades everything. Only the Bhakta can come to know that. As long as the mind is on the world, trying to get happiness, desiring this and disliking that, that mind, it's not possible to know the truth of the self. So bhakti means falling in love. When we love our child, it's called love, a certain type of love that we have for our child. When we love our wife or our husband, we have a certain love for them. When we love our house, those are all different types of love. When the love is turned towards God, that same type of love, when that love is felt towards God, that's called bhakti. When love is turned towards God, then love is not just love, it has a special meaning. It's called bhakti. The mind turning towards that, wanting to know that, wanting to realize that yearning for that, that's bhakti. That's necessary. Bhaktya eva, by bhakti alone, as long as the mind is not seeking that, but seeking something else, it's not possible to know who God is. So bhakti is absolutely necessary to know the truth. Only a bhakta can realize the truth of God. There's another verse in the Gita that says, Mat bhakta Buddhi yogam dadami. To my bhakta, to the one who's turned his mind towards me, mat bhakta, buddhi yogam. Buddhi yogam, the yoga of buddhi. Buddhi means discrimination. Dadami, I give that bhakta the capacity to discriminate. I'm not this body because the body is an object to me. I'm not these senses because they're known to me. I'm not this mind because it's known to me. I'm not this ego because it's known to me. I am the witness in which all of this appears and disappears, different from all that appears and disappears, unchanging, ever present, always shining, the eternal light in which the whole universe, including my body, mind, and senses, appears and disappears. That type of discrimination, mat bhakta buddhi yogam dadami, only the person who's purified their mind by turning away from the objects and seeking the subject. What is the known and who is the knower? Turning the mind towards the subject. That introverted mind is called bhakti. That's the real bhakti. But everything that helps you in that real bhakti, such as singing the names of God, because when those names are sung, the mind that's normally involved in so many worldly pursuits for a little while turns towards something divine, supreme, sublime. And so in a secondary sense, that's also bhakti, because it purifies the mind. A pure mind means a mind that's turned inwards. When the mind is on the world is always changing. You got to pay your rent, your lawyer, politics, a pandemic. There's a million things. The mind is chanchala, constantly jumping. But when the mind is on the unchanging consciousness, the mind becomes pure. That's what a pure mind means. The mind that has become introvert, subtle, free from likes and dislikes, devoted solely to that. That person's mind gets the capacity to discriminate and see that the self is not the body. The self is not even in the universe, that the whole universe, with all the people in it, appear in me. That me is God. That me is God. We can realize that truth. That becomes an evident truth to someone who's devoted to that. So bhakti means a mind filled with love for that, devotion to that, obsession with that, thinking about that, inquiring about that. Is that God different from me? Or is my true nature the same as God? Because if I were to realize that I am that, which is the highest teaching of Vedanta, Tattvamasi, you are that. Not you will become that when you go to heaven. Not that you'll become that when your chakras rise out of your head. But you are that here and now and forever. But because we don't know that, I've taken myself to be, I am this. I am a man. I am born. I am getting old. This is called samsara. Only the bhakta can get out of this. So bhakti is critical in Advaita Vedanta. To realize that I am that one reality, you must become a bhakta. The mind must become pure. It's only the bhakta whose mind is turned towards that unchanging reality that the mind becomes introvert and pure and subtle. In that mind is the mind that can realize I am that. That's the culmination of bhakti. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, there are 4 types of bhaktas who worship me. 4 types. The one in distress. Oh God, help me. Please, God, help me. That's the first type of bhakti. It is a type of bhakti because the mind is turning towards God when something bad happens in your life. But there's a higher type of bhakti that's called Jignasu bhakti. Who is this God that I'm calling out to help me? I want to know him. I want to know what is his nature? Where does he reside? What is his relationship to me? I want to know. That is a higher type of devotion. The person who wants to know God. The person who's realized, I am the witness, different from this ego that's ever present, ever shining, and his mind is always on that God who's the witness of the whole universe, and his mind is established on that. That's called Artha Arti. Now he knows who God is, and his mind is established in that. That's the third type of bhakti. You can imagine that it's not very easy to have your mind always established in that, now that you know that. But then there's another type of bhakti, the fourth type, the jnani. And Krishna says, higher than the one in distress, higher than the one who wants to know me, higher than the one who's known me and has his mind on me, is the jnani. Jnani tu atmaiva me matam. But I consider the jnani, the wise man, to be the highest, because he has become my very self. The jnani is God. He has no mind, he has no body. He is Satchitana.
Ira, can you hear me? The sound has gone, seems. Um, okay, everybody. Um, Ira, I don't know where
So, I
you.
don't know how long I was talking, but I think I lost you there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we lost the sound.
let me just sum up. Let me sum it up now. I think I've covered a little bit about Bhakti and Vedanta. Obviously, it's a big.
You have to tell us a little bit about your story. It's very interesting from a little bit from the beginning, when you started and what journey
My
you've been.
story, my story. So my story is
Want to finish off first what you were saying about the.
that you see, there's some people who think that if you're into Vedanta, there's no room for bhakti because Vedanta is non-dual. So there can't be any a devotee and object of devotion. But I wanted to bring out that without bhakti, there's no Vedanta. Right from the very beginning of the practice up until the highest thing, it drips with bhakti. Advaita Vedanta, the whole idea is you must become a bhakta. So that's the point I wanted to sum up on.
Oh, I like that. It drips with bhakti.
All through the whole thing,
I love
because it's really the mind devoted to that. If it really is, then God reveals himself. He's always there present, waiting to reveal. But when the mind turns to that, then he reveals. But as long as the mind is out, we can't. God is a million miles away. As soon as we turn in, we see he's always standing there, ready and willing and able to reveal his nature to the bhakta. So that's the idea. And there's, of course, more to be said about it, but in general.
Yeah, not so easy to let the worldly stuff going on.
Yes, so bhakti is not a cheap thing. It's not, oh, I went to kirtan, I'm a bhakta. It means this continuous love affair with that inner truth. And it's not easy. And it takes a lot of motivation and inspiration, but it's required in Vedanta. You must become a devotee, a bhakta. Without it, the whole thing is just dry, intellectual type of gathering information. It doesn't. There has to be a true love for this thing and a yearning for it and a wanting for it. Krishna says at the end of the Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityaga Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Give up all other dharmas, Arjuna, and take refuge in oneness with me alone. If you do that, I will release you from all sin, from all troubles, from all sorrows. If you give up everything else and take refuge in me alone, that's the very end of the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. The mind taking refuge in that. How does the mind take refuge in that is a big discussion.
Yes.
I won't get into that, but that's what's necessary. So in my case, I'll just briefly give a little history.
Yay.
Which is that, so when I was young, I was in the original, what you would call the counterculture hippie movement, 1965 to 67. I was in the Lower East Side of Manhattan where the hippie movement began in this planet. And then I hitchhiked across the country for 7 years, going to hippie communes. And during that time, I was, like all of my peers, I was experimenting with psychedelics. I was taking lots of mushrooms and LSD and peyote, and I was having what I thought to be spiritual experiences. That time seemed to be an illusion, or it's just a trip, or everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. And I was having those type of experiences. And then
Going
the
on.
drug would wear off,
Yeah.
and I would come down and I'd lose it. And so, of course, I'd want that experience again. And I would take another drug. And yes, I would have some type of sublime experience where my ego would dissolve, or I felt that I didn't have to seek anymore, whatever, that I knew what the Buddha knew, some type of spiritual experience, and then I'd come down. And after a while, I realized that this getting these experiences and then coming down from them and then wanting to get them again, I wanted to know, is it possible to get it and not lose it? To get up there and not come down? And at that time, somehow, I came across some books by somebody called Ramana Maharshi.
Mm.
And one book, and in that book, it described how Ramana Maharshi got it and he never lost it. In Sanskrit, it's called Sahaja Samadhi. It's a samadhi you don't come out of. You get it and you don't lose it. So I said, that's what I need. I need somebody to help me. How can I get this and not lose it? So I took his little book called Who Am I? And I put it in my backpack. It was 1969. And I bought a one-way ticket to Luxembourg from New York. And I hitchhiked from Luxembourg to India, trying to find, I had in my mind, I will find somebody who can teach me how I can get it and not lose it. That there must be somebody. Ramana Maharshi had already died in 1950, so it's 69. But I thought there must be other people like him that can tell me how I can realize that and not lose it. So with that, I hitchhiked to India, and with a few dollars in my pocket, no ticket back, and a 3 months tourist visa, I wound up in India, and I began searching for someone like Ramana Maharshi. So I went to Delhi, the capital of India, and I met some young people like myself who were also, many Westerners were coming to India in those days that had psychedelic experiences like me, and they had come east searching for, there's something in the Eastern tradition that is similar to the psychedelic experience. So they had gone east. So I said, so where are all the gurus? Where's all the gurus? They said, you have to go to Rishikesh. So Rishikesh is a place in the foothills of the Himalayas where there are a lot of yogis and sadhus and different people. It was 1969, and I had very little money, and I wound up in an ashram that I could stay for free. It was called Shivananda Ashram. It's a famous ashram in Rishikesh. It's still there today. It's still probably the most famous ashram. Anyway, I stayed there for a while, but nobody there seemed like Ramana Maharshi, so I wasn't interested in them. And I went up and down the Ganga, because Rishikesh is on the Ganges River, into caves and people that were living in little huts. I thought, this is where I'll find somebody that really could help me. But I couldn't find anybody. And I was giving up. I was there about 3 weeks or a month. I was starting to think, I'm not going to find anybody like Ramana Maharshi. And maybe this trip is going to be a failure. And I was sitting in a chai shop, and I had the book. I don't know how many, if you know the picture of Ramana Maharshi. Have you seen his picture? Yeah. So I have the book open with his picture, and the chai wala comes with the tea and he looks at the picture. He says, "Oh, there's one sadhu living in a hut on the side of the Ganga here. And on his puja, he has a big picture of this same guy." So I said, "Can you take me to him?" And sure enough, he takes me to him. And this person comes out and he says, "Can I help you?" I said, he said, "You have a picture of Ramana Maharshi on your puja. I'm interested in He says, "Come in for tea. Come in for chai pio." So I went in the hut and he says, "Yes, I love Ramana's teachings very much." And he started talking and he's mentioned the name Vedanta, which I really never heard about before. And so at the end of the tea, I said, this is all kind of new to me, the things you were saying. I was just reading Ramana about who am I, but you're talking about the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, and I don't know anything about that. Can I come back? So I came back, and after about 5 days, I said, "Boy, this guy is interesting. He can teach me." And I asked him, "Can you be my teacher? I'd like to learn more about this." He said, "I'm like a candle. Why study by the candle when the sun is out?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "My teacher who taught me this is still." I said, "Who's your teacher?" He said, "My teacher is Swami Dayananda Saraswati." So he gave me a note and he said, "You go and he'll teach you." I said, "But I have no money. My money's almost gone." He says, "It doesn't matter. If you want to learn Vedanta, he'll teach you." So he was going to be in Madras. I was in Rishikesh. And on the way, I get jaundice, hepatitis. And I wound up in the hospital. And the doctors there, they treated me with intravenous glucose. That's what they did in those days. There's no treatment for hepatitis, for that type of hepatitis. So I thought I was going to miss him. So 3 days in the hospital, and then I'm good enough to travel. And I get on a third-class train, and I travel 3 days to Madras. I'm totally filthy, long hair and a beard, something like I look right now, only dirty. And I show up at this house that turns out to be a mansion, and there are guards at the gate, and I show up, and they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'm here to see Swami Dayananda." And I showed them the note. So they opened the gate. They said, "Wait here. Swami Dayananda is not here." So anyway, 3 cars come in, shiny ambassador cars, and in the middle, Swami Dayananda comes out. I had never seen him before. And he has these beautiful orange sannyasi clothes on. And he steps on this golden pedestal, and they start washing his feet, and they're putting yogurt on his feet and ghee. And I'm sitting over in the corner thinking, "Oh my God, this is not Ramana Maharshi. This is, oh, I made a big mistake. What kind of business is this?" And he sees me standing over on the side, and he walks over to me after they do the foot puja. And he says, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm coming from Rishikesh, and your student said that if I'm interested in Vedanta, you would teach me." So he looks at me, he says, "Get him some clean clothes, pajamas, and I'll see you at dinner time." So I spent the next 2 years with Swami Dayananda studying Advaita Vedanta in a very traditional way. And at the end of 2 years, I, while I was traveling in a train station, I came across a little book on a bookstall that said "Misconceptions about Vedanta." So I bought the book, and I was going to see Swamiji Dayananda, and in the book, it said all the things that Swami Dayananda was teaching me was wrong, and that there's another type of Vedanta that's the real Vedanta. So when I got to see Swamiji, I showed him the book and said, Swamiji, this book says everything you're teaching is wrong. And he said, I can't help you. If you want, you go to the guy who wrote that book. So I went to the guy who wrote the book, and I spent about 2 years with him, and I agreed with him that his was the real Vedanta. And at the end of 2 years, I got a bad case of amoebic dysentery. And in those days, I didn't take medicine. I didn't believe in medicine. So I would fast to cure the amoebic dysentery. And I got sicker and sicker. And eventually, I couldn't move anymore. And a friend of mine took me to a naturopathic clinic in the south of India. And they tried to treat me there. To make a long story short, at the end, when I weighed about 100 pounds, the guy said, you have to go on a water fast. So I went on a 32-day water fast, and now I weighed 77 pounds and move any of my legs or arms, and I was dying of amoebic dysentery.
Okay, everyone, it seems that we've lost Ira. I'm just trying to invite him back in so we can hear the rest of the story. Aha, there he's back. 1 second. Ira!
Okay, I'm going to just finish this quickly. It's not that.
For me,
So at the very end,
yeah, you were almost dying and then you disappeared.
so I had to leave India. So that was my journey to India. I spent 5 years there, and that's how I got introduced to the study of. There's much more to be said about Vedanta, but I just want to emphasize about the bhakti part of it, that really even the study of Vedanta is a kind of bhakti, because your mind turns towards that. When you listen to somebody talking about this, it's a type of bhakti yoga. It's not merely just intellectual, because the mind, when it listens to this teaching, it naturally goes back to examine your own experience. And that's the real bhakti that's necessary, that turning inward. And, you?
Oh, wait 1 second, Ira. Are you back now properly? It said that natural turning. I don't know whether it's your side or my side, but mine seems pretty good, the connection. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Yes,
Now,
yes. Can we
yeah?
try again? Turn
Can you hear
inwards.
me?
Turning in. Yes.
Okay, I'll finish it up with this, that the best book, if anybody wants to read any book on Vedanta, is the Bhagavad Gita. It has the whole teaching in there. Krishna says to Arjuna, Kshetrajna cha pi madhvidi sarva kshetreshu. Arjuna, no.
Ah, we lost you again, Ira. We lost you. We can't hear your sound. Mm.
That the witness in you is Krishna. That's to realize that is through bhakti. You need a teacher, really, but the teacher will only turn you inwards and make you a bhakta. Point out the direction that we have to turn, because we don't know where to look without a teacher.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I will end it with that. Why don't we just, if there's any questions, is that possible? Or do you have any questions?
Uh, um, I would love to hear more. I think the connection, I would love to ask you about your connection to an experience with like mantra, chanting, japa, or even all the kirtan artists that you know across the world, and like Shram Das, who's passed sadly, and other artists in a way that you,
So you see,
or how do you find going to kirtan versus also the internal work and the like the talking about bhakti and doing the work of Vedanta ways? Yeah,
can you hear me?
yes. And if the connection goes, then we can always carry on another time because it's so wonderful to listen to you.
Okay, well, just I'll say a little bit about mantras, which is that, everybody, not everybody, but people probably know things like Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So even those 4 words, if you know the true meaning of Om, A-U-M, and what they stand for, and the deep significance of that symbol, and Shanti. Shanti doesn't just mean.
Ah, just at a point in time we've lost Shanti. Are you coming back, Ira? Oh, there you are, Ira. Shanti. I don't know whether it's your connection or but anyway, can you hear me, Ira? Oh, maybe it's me. Okay, everyone, I think we lost Ira. So I hope you got a good taster of of Ira, his story and his passion and knowledge and wisdom around Vedanta, Bhakti, and the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm going to request with him perhaps that I can do some more short sessions with him online with everyone if you want to join and listen, because he has, as you can imagine, for so many years of studying the Bhagavad Gita, of studying Vedanta, so much incredible wisdom and knowledge. And I want to hear more. He regularly goes to and knows many Bhakta kirtan artists, people, those that have a passion and love for Bhakti yoga. And so it would be interesting to hear more from him. I'll try one more time to join him in if he comes up. No, I think he may have gone now. In the spirit of oneness, he disappeared. So if the point of the purpose really of me trying to connect with people, I've met many people, many wonderful Bhakti people also from around the world, and I thought how nice it would be for me to learn and grow and embrace and connect with these people and share with these offerings that they have with you guys online. And so this is why I'm doing these different Bhakti mantra chats with different people across the board. So I hope that you enjoyed it. You got a little taster. And if you want to support anything that I'm doing, I also have a Patreon membership. So you can become a patron if you feel inclined to join. It's aiming to be more a membership group of community of people to connect and to... I'll offer classes online, yoga with mantra classes, mantra, breath work, all sorts of different things within the yoga modalities. So if it interests you, you can see the link in my bio. And yeah, the goal is to keep a connection going and have it more than asana, more than the physical body, and so that we can grow together as a shared consciousness and raise each other's energy and vibration through particularly kind of tough times. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you to Ira and everything that he had to share. It's always a pleasure listening to him, and it's like a meditation and a bhakti practice, like he said, in itself. So take care, everybody, and I will see you again soon. And I'll let you know if we manage to get Ira back on board to do another little session with us. Okay, take care. Lots of love from Mexico. Ciao.